Hello, everyone. My name is 𝗏𝗏𝗃, and this is Crush It Club, episode 53. We just passed what would be the equivalent to one video a week. Since this is the 53rd day, could be the 53rd week if you were doing this once a week. So today, I'm just calling this one 7 Levers, Unity and Chorality. Now, I've actually broken the order from the normal 7 levers of influence. This is normally the 7th. In the list that Cialdini created. The reason I did this is I'm reading a book by Jonathan Haidt called The Righteous Mind, and it's about the evolution of morality and how what he calls morality, I don't think it's actually the right word, but what he calls morality in the sense that most people use it is in evolution, it turned out that group cooperation outside of just direct kinship, that is relatives, was a greater advantage than individual competition or family cooperation. So that group cooperation, that is groups like religious groups or groups who identified with one another, villages who cooperated better together, outcompeted one another. So because of that, it gave me this real sense, an insight into my own understanding of the number 7 of the 7 levers of influence, which is unity. And it's like what it sounds like. It's the activities that cause cohesion within a group, that cause a group to sort of stick together. And that's why I've put this in this order. Because as one of my strategies to manage my ADHD and productivity in general is when something occurs to you, when something is top of mind, rather than spending a lot of time writing it down, I did write some notes for this because it's a bit detailed, but rather than writing something down and leaving it for later, strike while the iron is hot. Since doing these out of order in no way impacts the activity of these videos, it just puts one in a different place and otherwise doesn't affect or interfere with other activities. That's one of my ADHD management things. If you can do it immediately, it's not that dissimilar to GTD or getting things done. If it takes a few seconds, do it immediately, just on a larger time scale. So that's why I'm doing this one today. And Cialdini cites how as people act in one of 2 ways, and the 2 ways I'm going to talk about here is, first of all, within unity, he talks about synchronous activity. So that's the first one I'm going to talk about. And I've had this experience, and to me, and this is very meaningful for somebody who's absolutely not religious. And that is, if somebody says, do you ever believe in God? The closest I would come to saying it is, I do when I play drums in a circle, because you get a larger sense of self or almost a ego dissolution so that it becomes the group rather than the self. And it's interesting because Haidt and Cialdini both talk about this in things like marching, and Haidt in his book talked about drumming. And for me, that is a very personal thing. And as close as I get to spiritual is when you're drumming, you do get a sense you are coordinated around a specific beat. So this fit really well, and it's an excellent example of group unity. And it's very interesting because Cialdini talks about how people are strongly inclined to support group members, that is, groups with which they have done coordinated activities together. They are willing to accept and tolerate otherwise unacceptable, deeply unethical behavior from people within their group because they have a tendency to protect members of their group. And this is synchronous activity. So marching, dancing, drum circles, clapping, chanting, singing together, or even, as I used to do sometimes in my classes, reading one after the other, where to get students to pay attention, what I would do is I would have them literally read, "Once upon a time, there was a little girl who found a cottage in the woods," like that, so that they would focus on and follow along. But it turns out it also generates that unity, that sense, a social influence that causes a unification of the group. Now, as I said, Haidt speaks about this in terms of groups who were more cooperative within the group out-competed in evolutionary terms, in terms of resources, groups who were less cooperative within themselves. So this caused me to come up with an idea, because I don't particularly love the idea of morality, because morality means my morality, their morality are different, therefore I am right and they are wrong. And he talks about the dark side of groupishness, as he also calls it. So I've invented my own word here. I'm coining it right now at this moment, and that is, I think if we go one level up, so individual competition for propagation of genetic material that's related to you, group competition, which enhances the survivability, the adaptability of the group, I would say, what about the idea of what we call chorality? That is, taking morality and cooperation and smashing them together to make chorality. And I'm defining this as the propensity or inclination of a group to cooperate with other groups. So instead of individuals competing, individuals within a group cooperating, I'm talking about two separate groups and their tendency to cooperate with one another, especially now in this really divisive time, is probably going to be more successful than groups that highly cohere to one another and reject everybody else. So that's sort of my own predictability of this, especially during this time, that chorality would be even more adaptive, especially in the modern era where with the internet and social media, that if we can say, okay, we don't have to agree with everything within the group, but we recognize we have common interests. And I feel this is exactly the type of mindset that we need on a species level. You know, screw countries, screw religions. I don't care about any of that. As a species, honestly, I really do believe we have to get our shit together and say we have a common universal enemy we have to take care of, and that would be COVID-19. And that if we can, as a group, as far and as wide as we possibly can, recognize cooperation between groups is the best way for us to finally get rid of this COVID-19 pandemic, to have it end the fastest, create the greatest benefit and the least harm possible. So that's my own soapbox on this, but it still really is something that fits in with what we're doing here, because the second of the unity activities, that is the seventh lever of influence as Cialdini describes it, is coordinated activities, okay? So this is more than just synchrony of activity together. Coordinated activities is anytime a group works together to accomplish a shared goal. Is there any group on earth who is in favor of more COVID-19 and people dying from it? You may not agree about the details. We may not agree about anything, but I think we can all agree that we would love to see the end of this. So I'm proposing chorality, or what Cialdini would call coordinated activities. That is, we work together to have a common goal about ending COVID-19. And this can also work in your marketing, obviously, right? Groups working together to achieve a common goal, like let's all do our 2022 goals together. That is an example of coordinated, where we support each other to achieve a common end. So let's face it, the infighting for the last 2 years has really quite miserably failed. to achieve success over and above beyond COVID-19. So I'm proposing, why don't we try something different? Why don't we say, screw the infighting and the morality of our group is right and your group is wrong, and think about the idea of chorality, or large, ideally global cooperation to say, look, we all need to fix this. That's it for Crush It Club number 53, 7 levers, unity and chorality. My name is Tim B. Green. Bye for now.